I'm Marlia with Kearsarge Nordic, and today we're waxing skate skis. For starters, I have my 3 brushes, my scrapers, and some fiber lint. I also have an iron, which I've already set to 150, which is the temperature that it needs to be at for the wax that we're using today, which is just Toco Blue. This NF here means no fluorocarbons. Most of you don't have to worry about this, but there is what's called LF and HF wax. We're not supposed to use that anymore, so please, please, please don't put any on your skis. All right, for starters, you're gonna wanna clean your ski. This ski is already pretty clean. If they're wet, just go over it with a rag. My ski does not have that problem. You're gonna just wanna take your the level 1 brush, which is the hardest of the brushes, and like so. If you have like some dirt or some caked on leaves or something, you can give it a little bit of a harder brushing. I just cleaned these yesterday, so this doesn't really need to be done. But I'm also going to go over with my second brush and just make sure that I get all the little bits of dirt and everything off. If you have a lot of kind of particulates that you can see on your ski after you've brushed it, just go over it with some fiberline, make sure it's all nice and clean, and then we can actually get into the waxing. So there are 2 methods of waxing, dripping and crayoning. Dripping is very expensive. We're not Team USA here. We don't have an endless wax budget, so we use crayoning. Basically, you're going to want to hold the iron over the ski. I like to hold it upside down so that when it drips, you can drip it straight back onto the ski and waste a lot less wax. As you can maybe see, there's some wax already up here on the feet from where I just set it down and it drips down. If you hold it upside down, the wax drips straight onto the ski and doesn't kind of cake and make what we like to call poor man's wax, which is just useless and wasteful. Hold the wax, spend a little bit of time with the wax on the iron, and then apply it to the ski. You might have to do this a couple times just to figure out how long the wax needs to be on the ski, or the wax needs to be on the iron before you put it on the ski. And see, when it drips, I'm making sure to drip over my ski to collect as much wax as possible. Make sure your cord doesn't get caught on things so you don't drop the iron. And just like that. You can go back, and if there are any spots that are not fully waxed, add in a little bit more. You don't want to burn the base of your ski, so it's really important that you get an even coating of wax. It's also really important that you don't use too much wax. Like I said, we're not Team USA. We don't have an endless wax budget. You will be given a half of a block of wax, which seems like it's kind of not a lot. You'll be totally fine. You also want to make sure that you have enough wax on your ski so that when you scrape it, you don't scrape your base. There's 3 different passes that you're going to do with your iron. The first one, slow and steady. This is to just really ingrain the wax into your ski. Because the reason we do all of this waxing, which seems a little counterintuitive, you put so much wax on your ski and then you scrape it all off. Why? The base of your ski is actually porous, and the chemicals in the wax go into those pores, hydrate the ski, we call it hydrating your base, and make it so that you can glide on the snow. It basically repels water and helps to counteract the suction that happens when you put your ski onto the wet snow. The different colors of wax have different chemical makeups so that you can have the same great glide on snow that's really sticky and wet as you do on snow that's really icy. And really just making sure to kind of get an even coat on this wax job here. Making sure you can pass over it a couple more times with your iron. If you see places where the wax isn't fully melted, like right here. The base of your ski, also depending on how old your skis are, may not be totally flat. So there are going to be some places where you can look and see. You can tell the color of the wax because it looks has kind of a cloudy look of just the wax on your ski. Your ski base is going to be shiny. So you really want to make sure that you get all of those little spots and have a really nice even coating so that your ski glides evenly. Also, notice that I'm going from the tip of my ski to the tail of my ski. When you're putting your skis on your clamps and your footers, it doesn't really matter which way you put it as long as you wax from the tip of your skate ski to the tail of your skate ski. After you do your initial pass, You can just kind of go over, like I was saying, get all those spots that you might have not fully melted or missed a little bit, and you're done with this ski. I'm going to let this sit for 20 minutes to let it cool, let the wax get really into the base of the ski. While that's happening, I'm going to do my other one. So it's been 20 minutes and now it's time to scrape. I'm using one of these just plastic rectangle scrapers. Really important to make sure they're sharp. And the general technique for using these and for using the Swix utility scrapers is to hold it at just kind of like a 45-degree angle, very rough estimate, and lightly pull towards you. So I'm kind of holding it like this with my thumbs, putting a little bit of pressure, flexing it a little bit in between my thumbs and my pointer fingers so that it fits the tiny bit of bow that I know is in my skis. Like I said earlier, your skis aren't necessarily flat, depending on the amount of wear they have and also depending on how many grooves you have in your skis. Some skis have 2. So you just generally want to make sure that you're getting all of the wax off. That's super, super important, especially if you're doing multiple coats. So I'm just going to hold it at a 45-degree angle, press down, and pull. You're going to notice you're getting a little bit of this nice, fluffy, fake snow, a little bit blue tinged because of the color of the wax that I'm using. It's really important that it stays the color of the wax you're using. If you start to get into black, and this is where it gets tricky when you're actually waxing with black wax, but if you start to get this really kind of granular black sort of sediment coming up, that's your base. You need to stop scraping wherever you're scraping. That doesn't necessarily mean that your whole ski is scraped, because there could be just an area where you put less wax on when you were waxing. But it is really important that if you see those little black particles, stop waxing that, or stop scraping that area. The further along you get in your scraping process, the more you're going to start seeing the shininess of the base come through. That's basically what you're going for. There are going to be spots where it's still pretty opaque. That's the stuff you want to scrape off. And there are also going to be spots where it looks kind of like dry skin. You want to scrape those off too. It's basically the same equivalent of wax. It's just dry, didn't get as melted. You can go back over a spot that you're waxing if you feel that it needs to be kind of focused on more. Just make sure that you're not putting so much pressure on that you're getting base in an area. That's kind of like the biggest, most important thing when you're scraping your skis. Don't scrape your bases. Your bases are super, super important. This is the part that probably is going to take you the longest. And it also requires a fair amount of fine detail work, making sure that you get all of those little spots. You want to make sure that there's not a lot of wax left on your ski when you scrape, because the brushing is really just for kind of the fine detail work. So you might often hear kids on our team say, more wax is more speed. That is unfortunately not true. More wax does not make you go faster. It's just a reference to a waxing incident that occurred. Once your ski is clean enough, you want to use your groove scraper. It has 2 ends. This end is kind of wider. They're not entirely circular either. It's a little bit of an oval. So I'm going to use the smaller end first, put it same 45-degree angle into the groove, and steady it with my left hand, or whichever your non-dominant hand is, depending on whichever side you're waxing on, just so that it doesn't jump out of the groove and potentially put a little bit of a ding in my ski. So I'm going to give it a little wipe with the Fiberline to see if there are any spots that I really missed. So I've given this a wipe with the Fiberline. I'm pretty much done scraping. I'm going to move on to brushing. So first I'm going to use the number 2 brush, the midweight brush. This one has an arrow already on it because we've used it before. If your brush has an arrow on it, always brush in the direction that the arrow is going. So make sure that your arrow is going from your tip to your tail, just because you always want to be brushing in the same direction for the care of your the bristles on your brush. So same thing as before, I'm going to just do kind of a preliminary pass and then try to get as much of the wax out as possible. So as I was saying earlier, it does seem a little counterintuitive. It works, I promise. You can do a mixture of long passes and short little, just kind of what I'm doing now, just to really work out all that wax. The kind of end test is when you brush it and no wax dust comes off. That's how you know your ski is totally done. All right, when you think you're ready to move on, totally a judgment call, but when not a lot of wax is coming off, with your midweight brush, move on to brush 3, the fine brush. This one, again, the arrow, super important. I'm going to do just a preliminary pass again, and then When I'm doing the little short brushes, I'm putting quite a lot of weight into the ski. This helps to just clear all the pores as best as possible. All right, I'm gonna give it a wipe with the Fiberline, and then we'll test to see how well it's been brushed. Okay. That looks pretty good. So I would say that this ski is all done, and we'll move on to the next one.